To better detect and control the Delta variant, I made testing more available, affordable, and convenient. I used the Defense Production Act to increase production of rapid tests, including at-home tests. When I came into office, none of these tests were on the market. Thanks to our actions and the work of all of you, we now have at least 8 at-home testing options. No.
How would you do it?
How could you ask such a silly question? I was saying to a couple of younger members of my staff before I came over, about the many times I've been to Israel, I said, and then all of a sudden I realized, God, you're getting old. I have known every prime minister well since Golda Meir, including Golda Meir. And in the 6-Day War, I had an opportunity to, she invited me to come over because I was going to be the liaison between she and the Egyptians about the Suez and so on and so forth. Pharmacies will send millions of texts and emails to remind their customers to return for the booster shots because you know who got the booster shot at CVC. They've agreed they're going to send text to that particular person when their time is up. If you're wondering where to go, again, visit vaccines.com.
I used to drive a tractor trailer.
Oh, awesome.
And so I know a little bit about driving big trucks.
No, that's great.
But anyway, I only did it for part of a summer.
Oh, okay.
But I got my license.
And it bears noting, this bill is fully paid for and will not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year.
And that's where we are. We have to be doing everything faster. We have to be phasing out coal plants 5 times faster than we are. We have
people in the middle class. When I ran for president, I said I was running for 3 reasons. 1, to restore the soul of the country, to restore some decency to how we dealt with it. And to rebuild the backbone of the country. Hard-working middle-class folks and working-class folks who built the country. The folks in Wall Street aren't bad, but they didn't build America. The people who come out of the school are the ones that build America. They built America and they've been left behind for much too long. We're going to rebuild this economy from the bottom up and the middle out. I've never known a time when the middle class has done well that the very wealthy haven't done very, very well. I'm not being solicitous, I'm being deadly earnest. But I'm tired of this trickle-down economy. I'm tired of it. Lowering the cost of child care, elder care, housing, health care, prescription drugs, and meeting the moment of climate change. That's what this plan does. Frankly, I'm surprised that not a single Republican in Congress has joined us in supporting it. It can't be because it would add to inflation. 17 Nobel laureates, 17, 3 weeks ago spontaneously sent me a letter saying that it would have the opposite effect. It would actually reduce long-term inflationary pressures. It can't be because it would add to the deficit, because it reduces the deficit over the long term. It can't be because it's fiscally responsible, because it's fully paid for. Fully paid for. No one earning less than $400,000 a year will pay a single penny more in federal taxes. 55%.
Why is that not true today?
Well, I want to repeat again, Build Back Better is fully paid for and will not add to the debt or to deficits.
Right.
And in fact,
You and I just don't agree on
reduce
that.
it. Well,
understand.
CBO certainly agrees with what I said.
But I want to read directly from the Congressional Budget Office's score. CBO estimates that enhancing this legislation would result in a net increase in the deficit totaling $367 billion over the 2022 through 2031 period. That's the 10 years.
This bill will deliver universal preschool to every 3- and 4-year-old in America. Look, this Build Back Better plan is also going to ensure that parents can afford child care. And the child care work, if you're paying $14,000 for child care like a lot of Minnesota families do, my Build Back Better plan is going to make it a giant difference in your life, because your child care costs will be capped at 7% of your income. 7%. The first major piece of legislation in more than a decade that's not only fully paid for, based on official estimates from the Congressional Budget Office, the Joint Committee on Taxation, the Treasury Department, it's going to generate more than $100 billion in deficit reduction this decade. So look, I know some people have said this bill isn't fiscally responsible enough, because even though it's fully paid for, they acknowledge, even though it would reduce the deficit, which they acknowledge, even though it represents the first time in over a decade that we're doing the hard work of offsetting investments with new revenue, after years of Republican leadership in Washington, passing tax giveaways to the super wealthy, new spending without even giving a thought about how to pay for it, they added $8 trillion to the national debt with the Trump tax cut. $8 trillion. I welcome a serious conversation about how to pay for the investments we make. But here is what those critics are not telling you. They're not telling you that I've committed to paying for every single program that extended, if any are, in future legislation, whether that's for a day or a decade. And here's what else they're not telling you. I'm happy to have that debate on about how to pay for these priorities. In my Build Back Better plan, we're already undoing some of the most reckless elements of the Trump tax bill, like ending the tax breaks for companies sending jobs overseas. You got a tax cut for sending a job overseas. But other tax giveaways in the bill that expire, that bill expires in 2025, it has to be reauthorized. Those 735, whatever the number is, made an additional $1 trillion in that year and a half. Trillion. I didn't hear anybody weeping and gnashing their teeth about any of that. I see a lot of mayors are here, you know, I told you that's the toughest job in America. They know where you live. But it really is. You affect people's lives more than anybody else directly, and you're right there. So